Alright, so... Ooh, okay. First of all... First of all, hold up. Hold on. Alright. This is the face cam. Hold on. I just woke up not too long ago. I'm still a little drowsy. I just need the filter. Where is the filter on this camera? I do this so many times. Properties, right. No, not properties. Wait a minute. Wait. Hold on. Filters. Here we go. Edit filters. And I'll add the green screen. Color key. Add. Color. Custom color. Pick that color. Close. It's not doing anything. It's not doing anything. It's not doing anything. Hold on. Properties. No. Filter. It's been so long. It's been so long. We're good. Okay. We're good. We are good. Okay. Took a minute. It took a minute, but I got there. It's been a while. I apologize. We're good. Okay. If there's any issues, let me know, please. So, hello, everybody. Hello. I am DeathSpread, and it's been about almost a year since I've done one of these. And they're coming back weekly. So, again, that goes hand in hand with the whole channel schedule thing that I've been doing for so long now. And by that, I mean 2 days. But, yes, we are back. And I'm going to be doing this every Tuesday and Monday. Excuse me. I apologize. And these are... These are basically, the idea is we sit down together for roughly an hour a week, and I'm just going to do this. We sit down together for roughly an hour a week, and we go over different cryptids together, right? And when I say cryptids, I mean exactly what you would imagine what I mean. You know, skinwalkers and wendigos and things of the like, right? So it's really anything that falls under the cryptid category. I know my camera's freezing. I'm sorry, I'm messing with it. I know it goes under really anything with the cryptid category. The cryptid category is I usually pull it from the wiki. And what I usually do is I go through and I will choose not whether or not, but what cryptid I want to go over for the week, right? So let's say I want to go over the not deer. I would go to the Cryptid Wikipedia and choose a deer. Choose not deer. And we start doing research and videos on this. But I haven't A, had a drive, or B, had a reason to continue the series because, I don't know. I couldn't explain it. I mean, I got busy this year and everything else, but I wanted to really hammer this down, nail and coffin. And I decided to do that with the not deer because I was at work last week and I got recommended a 20-minute video. And that 20-minute video was this. Not this ad. I am not sponsored by anybody. There are no ads on this video at the moment as of the date of streaming this, yada, yada, yada. I'm not affiliated with any company or anybody. All right. I am a one-man show, true and true. So I was watching this video for a long while and then I watched it again. So I asked the person who made it, And I'm sorry if anybody from my work is watching this. I did watch it at work. But in my defense, it's winter. I work at a golf course. You know, what do you want me to do? So, I commented on the video just to show you guys, hey, you know, this video inspired me to get back into the Cryptid Podcast, yada, yada, yada. It's a 2-year-old video, but it recently got blown up because of all of the, all of the algorithm. And I just wanted to know, now that I monetized the first tier, I want to incorporate this into a live stream for my weekly schedule, and I'd love to make a live stream about the not deer and use this video during it. It would simply be watching it live, talking about the encounters you mentioned, and I, of course, would give credit to a link in your channel video, which I will do. I think I have a link to the video right now. I will also add a link to their channel. All right, it's awesome. This person is amazing. But thankfully, Seed Butter was kind enough, said, sure, dude. So thank you, Seed Butter. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I know technically, I think by law, I don't need to, as long as I reuse the material in a constructive way. It's all the fair use, yada yada. But what we're gonna do is we're going to watch this video, and then we're gonna talk about it and also do research through the interweb. So we're gonna watch this full screen. We're gonna watch it live together. I mean, not live again. It's a 2-year-old video, but still. And then we're also gonna read Seed Butter's encounter. Now, for the record, this is my only interaction with Seed Butter. So I'm you know, we're not friends or anything. We have never spoken outside of this chat. I just want to make that very clear on his comments of this video. I do very much thank Seed Butter for the allowance of using this during the live stream. So thank you again for the 15th time. It means a lot to me. It really does. But I just want to make that clear. So after we watch this video, we're going to go down and we're going to read we're going to read all of this encounter the Seed Butter themselves had. And then we're going to talk about it. And after we read that, we're going to do some research online. So 26 minutes of this live stream is going to be us almost reacting to this video, but I know what's coming. So sound good? And what is the Whistler's Cryptid Podcast now that we're 8 minutes in? Because this is a kind of a special episode of the podcast. So basically, the idea of this podcast is for us to make a series that you can, like, say you work in a basement at a hardware store, right? Doing inventory. I want you to be able to listen to something that's not just an audiobook, because I've been there. So I want this to be something you can just sit down, listen to me read articles online, talk about it, and we'll learn a little something together each week about different cryptids. So this is more so a way to give you guys something to listen to. I was also thinking, the last time I did this, I wasn't as strong in my faith about Christ, and that does have a big part to play in my life nowadays. And as such, I had actually a couple conversations in recent history about the idea of cryptids versus religion, really, and Christianity specifically. Let me put it to you this way. From my view, anything that exists for a reason by his plan. All right, so I don't see anything here as a mistake. I truly, truly don't. I see everything that we go over on every episode as just another creature that he created for the purpose of which we do not know. Cool? Cool. Okay. Well, there's a lot of extra text here and extra fluff for the first 10 minutes, so this will be like an hour 10, hour 20 video, but yeah, so the Whistler's Crypt Podcast is just going over different cryptids, and we are gonna I try to be receptive to different cultures, because the cryptids that are throughout the world are very, 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 very cultural dependent, right? I mean, you go back and watch almost any of the episodes I've done in this podcast series, and they're very heavy with culture. And you can't ignore that when you're researching something like this. You just can't. A cryptozoologist cannot ignore culture. So I always try to be respectful. Like the Thunderbird is a Native American cryptid, essentially. Cryptid. It's more like a folktale, I would argue. But, you know, again, there was evidence. It was that photo. You name it. So just so you're aware. All right, this can get not political, but very cultural at certain points. 10 minutes is over. A lot of fluff. I apologize. I'll go back and I'll see if I can't add chapters to this live stream after it finishes uploading as a VOD. Cool. So, we're going to start this video out by watching Seed Butter's The Cryptid is 100% Real video about the not deer. Let's jump right into it. I love you guys. Welcome back. Oh, last thing. This is the second time I've rebooted the series on New Year's. It is December 30th, so I'm going to consider this a New Year's video. This is the second time I've done this, which is pretty hilarious. So, all right, let's jump right into it. No more talking. Can you guys hear this video?
One of the coolest
Yes.
communities on the internet is made of users dedicated to the study of cryptids. However you view cryptids, whether you consider their importance in art, literature, and history, or you just think of them as a fun distraction from reality, or even truly believe that they exist and just have yet to be fully documented, the talk surrounding cryptids is always entertaining.
Okay, I missed that when I watched this. That's hilarious. That little man is jigging down the street. Like, he is doing a jive. Is that even a word, jigging? I swear that's a word. I swear that's a word. It's like dancing, but like 1920s word. I don't know. I hope I didn't say anything bad. I swear I think it's a 1920s word. I swear I've read it in books. But anyways, so there is sad footage in this video of potentially dying fatal deers. All right, and I'm very sensitive to that sort of stuff. I'm gonna say that a few times throughout this video. I at first thought of ignoring that footage because I don't really want that on my channel, but it is very, very relevant to the topic at hand. And as such, I feel it's important to leave Seed Butter's video as original as I possibly can. So we're just going to let it roll. But again, I will keep mentioning there is sad footage.
Today I'm going to be talking about the talk surrounding cryptids is always entertaining.
I love that.
Today I'm going to be talking about a relatively new type of cryptid that isn't mentioned all too often within the cryptid community, which I think is truly a shame because of what I'm about to tell you. The cryptid that we're going to talk about today is 100% real. Well, mostly, at least. What I'm talking about today is, of course, the Appalachian knot deer. A creature described by Appalachians as simply a deer that just doesn't look quite right. There's something off about it. While sightings of the knot deer are both rare and unique, there are so many common themes of the knot deer across encounters that people have had.
That's what I mean.
Some of these characteristics include large size,
It's tough to
predatory eyes, strange behavior, strange noises, no fear of humans, increased speed and agility, lack of proper proportion, walking on hind legs, omnivorous or carnivorous behavior, improper joints, and an intimidating figure.
Now, he does talk about this, but these are extremely similar, if not almost the exact same as a, I believe it's either Skinwalker or Wendigo. I'm pretty sure it's Skinwalker, which we did part 1 of. I will do part 2 in one day. That is completely separate. That is a different cryptid from the knot deer. He does talk about it, but I just want to make that clear.
So I did say that knot deer are real, and how does that make any sense? I mean, what I described is so unlike the American white-tailed deer that knot deer have to be completely made up. But that's not entirely true. In this video, I'm going to point you towards the conclusion that Appalachian knot deer sightings are explainable instances of real deer behavior. Due to fundamental misattribution and strange behavior caused by real diseases and conditions, knot deer sightings can be 100% accurate. Today, let me bring you on a strange journey about a cryptid that isn't all myth.
The Pillow of Dragons? What? The Dragon Pillow.
But before we do just that, I want to quickly ask you that if you enjoy this content and want more strange random stuff like this, please subscribe to the Seed Butter channel.
Check out Seed Butter.
I'm a small channel looking to grow to 10,000 subs by the end of this year, and with your amazing support, it's
They're at
something
50K,
that I
by
totally
the
think
way.
we can do.
So they made
Also, if you want to be a part of the Seed Butter community and help pick future videos, make sure to join the Seed Butter Discord. Link in the description.
Not
Also,
my
I do want to
description.
quickly warn
His
you that
description.
some of this video contains sad footage of deer and pain, so if you aren't really a fan of that, I would skip out on this one. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you enjoy the video. So, how am I going to tackle this one? The first thing I want to do is read a couple of examples of knot deer encounters, so we can get a little bit of a grasp on what's going on here. Then, I want to show you some of the diseases that commonly affect deer, and make the connection to those symptoms and the characteristics of knot deer. Then I want to show some documented examples of strange and not completely explained deer behavior as well, which also contribute to these knot deer encounters. With that finished, I'll conclude as to how these things do make a knot deer an unequivocally real phenomenon. One quick note that I want to touch on right away is that I am not talking about wendigos in any way, shape, or form.
Right here.
Unfortunately, wendigos have been the subject of misinterpretation for a very long time. Many depictions of Wendigos as upright, horned creatures with some features like a deer do not resemble the original tales of the Wendigo, which are derived from Cherokee and other Native American legends. In those tales, Wendigos are described as large humanoids that sometimes have telepathic abilities, able to control people and force them to do terrible things, often cannibalism. The main motif of those legends is that Wendigos either force people to cannibalize, or they're what humans turn into if they cannibalize themselves.
And we did go over that in an
and
episode.
are designed to be a thematic interpretation of selfishness. So the Wendigos in Until Dawn, for example, nail the design, whereas art like this is just plain wrong. One theory is to explain how the conflation with the current idea of a Wendigo came to be is that Europeans associated the Cherokee tales of the Wendigo with the werewolf. So slowly the Wendigo evolved to have fur and other animal characteristics. But again, that's just not accurate, and it's not what we're talking about today. So to be clear,
For the record, I added that text on top of the screen in case anybody joins midway through the video while the stream is live.
none of this video has to do with Wendigos, though they are a subject that I might look into in the future because the original tales of them are quite fascinating. But anyway, let's get back to not deer. Also, not deer do not look like this. I don't know why this even came to be.
Awesome. That's so funny.
Let's start off by reading a few accounts of these creatures, specifically a Reddit post and a green text. Be like maybe 13 or 14. Just moved from a densely...
All right. So just so we're all clear, I know for most people this would be self-explanatory, but not everybody is most people. A green text is where you have like a short sentence or a few words next to a sideways caret, so like a greater than sign, and then it'll be me. So the idea is the point of view for the story is be me. I am the point of view. So if I say, oh yeah, be me, 16 years old, 2008. You know, I wasn't 16 in 2008. That's the idea. So green text, whenever he does like a new sentence, it's like a new entry on the story. So it's basically a story. So just so we're all clear.
populated city to a 60-acre farm in the middle of nowhere because parents wanted to for some stupid reason, so fuck it. Having a housewarming party with a group of friends from the city one afternoon. Walking around the property behind the house to explore and goof off. Start walking farther than I had tried to previous to that point with friends. Had only been living there for maybe a few days. Get to a clearing just past the bow of a hill and right outside where the woods started. Friends are running around and chasing each other with sticks or whatever stupid middle schooler shit. Call everyone together to prepare a trek into the woods, eager to see what interesting things might be around. I've always liked hiking despite being a city slicker. Wait for the group to be collected before turning around to face the woods again, which, at this point, had been behind me for a while I waited for everyone to be ready. Walk a few yards towards the woods with my friends following behind me before noticing something that looks like an errant tree branch on the ground in front of us. Get closer and take notice of what it actually is. Entire back leg of what I'm guessing was a deer lying in the middle of this clearing. No signs of decomposition or coagulation of blood. Rip was fresh and had probably happened at the very least on the same day. Stand there staring at the leg, sort of dumbfounded, while trying to imagine how it got there. Hear friends behind me murmuring to themselves. Realize the leg probably freaks them out a lot more than me because hardly any of them have as much experience as I do with the wilderness, and turn towards them to quell their paranoia. Yeah, this is pretty strange, but it's honestly not that uncommon to find dead animal parts strewn about areas like this. I don't think this is really a big deal. Friend closest to me points and says, "Anon, look," and points ahead to what the rest of them are staring at. Look at where he's pointing and see tons of animal parts strewn around the edge of where the woods began. Mostly various organs like livers and stomachs or intestines. Some are just unidentifiable masses of flesh with tufts or fur still attached. Okay. Wow, okay. The few girls that were there with us get pretty freaked out and decide they want to walk back to the house. One of my bros cites the fact that the sun is starting to go down and escorts them back, but I think he was also probably just scared and didn't want to admit it. Me and 3 other bros remain and we start our expedition. I walk ahead of the other 3, trying to look confident and fearless, but secretly starting to feel really uneasy.
All right, I'm going to pause it here for a minute. So, to give credence to what Seed Butter said earlier in the video, right, about not deer is not the same as a Wendigo. Wendigo are usually preceded by two main things. I mean, there's a lot that they're preceded by, but 2 main things. Well, 3. Okay, 3. a sense of extreme fear. They lead to hunger and cold. So really, so it is too. Fear and cold. If you feel cold and you feel a sudden unexplainable type of fear, that is, in the sense of cryptids, that is a Wendigo. You have a Wendigo on you. That is the basic premise of how you know there's one strolling about. This story does not have either. I mean, fear, yeah, but you'll see why. This story does not have those telltale signs.
A short distance from the entrance, we find a small creek and start following it down its bank. My friends are tossing rocks into the creek while I'm enjoying the native wildlife we keep running into, just like bugs and birds and shit. Feeling of uneasiness subsides slightly. Start to hear low moaning noise deeper into the woods. Friends don't seem to notice, so I ignore it and keep following the creek while telling myself it's just some stupid fucking animal being a dick and making creepy noises for no reason. We've been walking for a good 20 minutes or so when I notice a rancid smell like fermented shit. Walk around a bend of the creek and see a mass on the ground about 12 yards away. Get close to it and discover it's a completely mangled body of a large cow. Looks like it's been there for months. Bones in its legs are broken, missing a lot of ribs. Face has been picked clean of all soft tissue. The low moaning noises have gotten loud enough at this point that my friends have finally noticed them. Decide that I don't want us stuck out there after dark and start to lead them back to the house. We get back and f*** around playing PlayStation or whatever for the rest of the night. None of my friends come back to the farm after that.
Wow.
Fast forward to about a week later. Various animal parts near the entrance of the woods were gone the next day, and I'd been spending the past few days trying to relocate the corpse we ran into next to the creek, with no luck. Walk around in the fields by myself, still trying to familiarize myself with the area. Not so much scared by the situation from last week, but just confused. Nightfall finally comes and I start heading back towards the house. Walking around in the dark without a torch to the light of the full moon because I was a weird kid that liked doing that sort of shit.
Yeah, it sounds peaceful to me.
Make it to a field that had been formerly used as a plot for crops, can't remember what kind, by the previous farm owners. Walk down it for a minute while peering through the darkness and letting my eyes adjust to the moonlight. Stop when I hear some scuffling noises not that far ahead of me. Think for a second that my dog had gotten out and curse under my breath. Wait for a minute in silence, expecting him to run up to me while wagging his tail and smiling like a dumb fuck.
So just to recap, we had a dead cow, torn off leg of a deer, and low moans. Then I believe it was either the night or the day before, you said, at this house that this anonymous person, the original poster OP, all this lingo. That the person who created the story, whether it's real or not, although the idea is you take it as real, it heard the day before and saw.
Notice something moving across the field not more than 30 yards away. Not my fucking dog. Very clearly see some fucking really, really weird looking thing with pointed ears and an elongated snout crossing my path on all fours while moving in a way that reminded me of a deer trying to learn how to walk immediately after being born. Only it doesn't look like a deer, more like a cobbled together toy of one, and it's fucking enormous. It doesn't seem to notice me as I watch it slowly meander away. I wait for it to be out of sight and silently sprint back to my house. Walk in and see my dog quietly lying in his bed. Don't mention it to my parents and just go to my room. Fast forward another couple of days. I've completely stopped exploring the property at this point and taken to spending all of my time in the house. Sitting in the living room downstairs and playing video games around 8-ish at night. Mom pokes her head in and asks me to drag the garbage out to the curb. Fuck me. Put on my shoes and go outside. The curb is a fair distance away from the house, and I don't want to spend more time outside after dark than I need to, so I end up basically jogging to the curb while dragging this garbage can behind me on a gravel road, making a shit ton of noise and running back to my house as quickly as possible. Accomplish my chore without incident and continue playing video games. Get done playing games and retreat to my room for sleep. Have trouble dozing off and decide to light a candle and read a book. Bed is on the ground, I hadn't bothered to set up the frame yet, pushed up against the walls that are closest to the outside and on the opposite end of the house where my parents are asleep. It's probably around 2 or 3 in the morning. Hear a light tapping at the window to my right and past the foot of my bed. Assume it's a tree branch or something and ignore it. Hear it again. God damn, this is a good book. Hear a loud bang on the window that sounds like something slapping it with an open palm. Get startled and think it's one of my parents outside spying on me to try to get me to go to sleep. My grades had been starting to slip because I was staying up too late. Toss book on the side of the bed and blow out candle. Sit in silence for a moment. Hear the tapping noise again. Get really fucking scared. Reach over to the side of my bed and pick up a baseball bat that I had lying next to it. Grip it for dear life, ready to beat something to hell and back. Sit in the dark for what felt like forever. Start hearing a dull scratching noise coming from behind the wall near the spot to the right of the window next to my feet. Listen helplessly as the noise starts to get louder. Like a lot fucking louder. Sounds like there's someone dragging a collection of industrial-grade rakes along the outside of my wall. Pull my feet up and sit in the fetal position, still gripping the bat. Realize the noise is moving alongside the wall, getting closer to where I was actually on the bed. Listen to it drag along my right side, along the corner, and finally hover directly behind my head. Sitting there in disbelief at how goddamn loud it is. Preparing myself mentally to die. Noise abruptly stops. Feel my heart about to pop out of my chest. Suddenly hear my dog barking. Jump out of my bed, still holding my bat. Run to find my dog pointed at the side entrance of the house, barking loudly and growling. Try to calm him down.
Doggy.
He's going totally apeshit. Hadn't ever seen him like that before. Mom comes downstairs to see what's up. I tell her that I think the dog saw a cat or something to kind of skirt the reality of what had just happened. Finally calm him down enough to get him to stop barking. Mom goes back upstairs, petting my dog while he continues to growl pretty viciously while still pointed at the door. Convince myself that whatever I had heard in my room must have been a raccoon or something stupid, and that I should see if it's outside making my dog go crazy. Flip the switch to the side porch and unlock the door, taking a breath before cracking it open slightly to peer outside. Look out to see a neatly placed severed pig's foot on the ground just within reach of the porch light.
Brave kid.
Shut the door and relock it. Sit at the door with my dog until morning.
I got kind of two problems with that story. One is, let's remember, all of that was from the eyes of somebody in middle school. I think they said 16, 15, I don't know, but middle school. All right. That's quite the child for a middle school age with a situation like that, number one. Number two, you're going to sit at your door for the remainder of the night with your dog where there's a severed pig foot. That doesn't make much sense, you know. I don't know. The devil's in the details. I don't really understand those ideas, but whatever.
Now, here's a second account that I found on a Reddit comment. Let's check it out.
As the daughter of a refugee, I can see.
I don't think this is a story of the not deer.
I lived in Waynesboro, Virginia for about 5 years. Less than 10 miles to the BRP North Entrance, Skyline Drive South Entrance. I used to take bike rides along the SD all the time, and always kept a year-long membership. Only in the day, though, just to frame the story. One night, I was having a particularly hard time settling in for bed, so I decided to start up the bike and ride up to the first overlook on the skyline, only about a mile inside the park. It was about 11 p.m. when I got there, and pitch black.
I really like the stock
I
footage
killed
she
the bike
uses.
and got immediately uncomfortable. I'm not a guy that gets spooked in the dark. Truthfully, I prefer the dark in most situations. You can see people before they see you. You are practically invisible unless someone is looking for you, and I find the natural privacy comforting. Not up there, though. It was a thick, oppressive dark, worse than anything I experienced outside of a cave, and worse than any moonless night on the Appalachian Trail. I immediately got hinked out, big time. There's nothing up here besides wildlife, I reassured myself internally. I had my .44 Magnum revolver from when I lived and hiked in the Pacific Northwest, which was bear country and all that jazz, tucked into my concealed carry weapon holster, so I knew that I definitely outmatched anything that could be up there, two-legged snakes included. So I sat in the dark, leaning against the bike for a while and looking at the few lights I could see in the valley below. I managed about 10 minutes before I physically felt the hair raise on the back of my neck. I only did 27 months in Iraq, but I remember that precise feeling. Someone was watching me. Something bad was coming. It was the same sensation I would get before IDF came in or shooting started somewhere nearby. I'm no psychic or whatever, but it's a common thing among vets with any time under their belt. Ask them about it. You can feel hateful eyes on you. The overlook was a sheer drop, so I wasn't concerned about anything popping up in that direction, but the mountainside and thick, untamed woods were behind me. I started thinking about methed out dudes creeping the Appalachian Trail, bears, and the like. The AT is no stranger to random violence. Still feeling creeped out, I took up a seat on the waist-high stone wall that marked the overlook ledge, facing the woods. Again, I can't emphasize how dark it was. But Gris, you might say, why not turn on the bike and use the lights? It'll help you see what's close. True, but my bike is loud, and the last thing I wanted was attention. Besides, the light would just night blind me to anything out of view, and the noise would obscure any stealthy sounding creeping going on, so no thanks. I'll watch and listen for a bit. I sat in the dark for another 10 minutes or so, anxiety getting worse and worse. I heard a few things, but nothing out of the ordinary for a night in the woods. I decided to head on home since the feeling wasn't going away. Like I said, I had a big bore on me, so anything playing games would be in for a powerful surprise if the games got stupid. Hopping on my Suzuki, I started it up and rode off towards the gate. Now, anyone who lives in the country and rides a bike knows that wildlife is crazy active on roads that aren't traveled often at night. Being nighttime and technically closed, I had to ride around a gate to get in. There were no other vehicles on the road at all. I hadn't seen a single other person since leaving Waynesboro proper. The speed limit was 30 miles an hour, but I clipped along at a measly 15 miles an hour to keep an eye out for deer and wildlife. It wouldn't do me any good to f myself up in a wreck, only to lay there all night until someone happened to cross me in the morning. Then, I saw it. The term of almost deer is really fitting, but not quite accurate. It was like a deer that someone who had never seen a deer drew, but only after someone else described it to them. It stood on the left side of the road, towards the mountainside, and I saw the eyes long before my headlights shone it fully. It was big, easily the biggest deer I'd ever seen, and the lack of any horns that time in the year suggested that it was a doe. The head was almost bovine in shape, but fixed to a deer's frame. The legs seemed too long in proportion to the body. Think maned wolf.
I do want to just point out, he said that time of year. For those who don't know, deer, in fact, do shed their antlers. That is a known true thing. Deer antlers do not have to be collected from a dead deer. You don't have to kill a deer to get their antlers. You can just find them strewn about in the woods if you're lucky enough. They shed their antlers, and it's almost like a velvety, soft feel on the outside, and it's bone on the inside. Now that I believe it's bone. I could be wrong. Maybe it might actually be either calcium or the cartilage. I think it actually might be cartilage. I ignore my bone comment, but it's been a while since I worked at a zoo. But yes, the deer do they do shed their antlers. So when he says that time of year, that actually tracks very well, because in that case, that indicates this is not shedding season for the antlers on the deer. Which means, of course, since it had no antlers, it would have to be a doe. You would think.
Portions, and the body was extremely barrel-chested. I'd always been creeped out by malformed wildlife, and this was no exception. Unfortunately, I had to get it to move, or risk passing within a few feet of it. I was not traveling another 30-plus miles up the road in the other direction to leave through another gate in the middle of the night, and I wasn't getting close to it. Dangers of it spooking and running into the side of my cruiser aside, I didn't want to get near it at all. Stopping and putting my feet about 30 feet away from it, I tried to frighten it away. I flashed my beams down to low and back to high. Nothing. I revved the engine. Nothing. I honked the considerable horn. Nothing. Resting the bike on the kickstand, I left it idling and hopped off. I yelled at the thing, and it still didn't budge. So I started to the side of the road to grab something to toss near the deer thing, hoping to spook it that way. As soon as I crossed onto the other lane, it rose up onto its hind legs. I froze, putting my hand on my gun. I wasn't about to get charged by an angry, confused, malformed doe. It took 2 jerky, unnatural steps toward the center of the lane on 2 legs and froze again, staring directly at me. It suddenly shook its head wildly like a dog with a toy, took another step, then hopped on 2 legs several times until it disappeared into the darkness on the right side of the road.
Can you imagine that?
I stepped back to the bike, mounted it, kicked up the kickstand, and turned the light towards the side of the road. On that side, there was a sheer drop of about 75 to 80 degrees compared to the roadway, and that f***ing thing's head was just peeking over the edge, still looking at me. The drop-off was about 40 to 50 feet, so there's no way it was standing at the base of the mountainside. I cracked the throttle and beat the hell out of there. Road wildlife be damned. I never went back up on Skyline Drive at night alone.
Like how the doe in the
after
video
that.
is making calls.
One time was enough. There are things we don't grok out there, or things that just visit for a while. Whatever it wasn't from around these parts in Hill Talk. It can go back to wherever it came from and stay there. So obviously there are a lot of really good accounts of the knot deer, but I found those two to be
I've
some
got
of the
no
best.
comments about that one. That was just
Now
a
that
good
that's
story.
all finished, it's time to offer up some solid explanations
This is
first
where
to
the
why
footage
knot
gets
deer behave the way they do.
unfortunate. So be careful.
Let's begin with CWD. CWD, or chronic wasting disease, is a condition caused by prions that affects deer, elk, moose, and similar animals. Typically, deer with CWD will show extreme weight loss of balance, and neurological problems. It's an absolutely fatal disease. While CWD is not as concentrated in Appalachia as it is in other places, it certainly exists there, and it's possible that you could run into an infected deer. Like many neurological disorders in animals, CWD can cause deer to lose their fear of people, which can contribute to the not deer legend of a strange animal that isn't afraid to approach you. Many refer to CWD as the zombie deer disease because of how crazy the neurological symptoms can be. Take a look at some of these videos I've been playing and just think about how CWD might have something to do with the legend of the knot deer. Here's an example. Now, I might be wrong about this one because this video isn't of the best quality, but don't these eyes look a bit off? Now, within the safe context of the news or looking at the CDC's website, this stuff about CWD isn't all that scary. But imagine walking home through the woods at night if you live out in rural Appalachia and you run into a menace like this. How would that not make you think of a cryptid? In all seriousness, though, CWD is a very sad disease that has a huge impact on conservation and currently has no known cure.
I didn't see that when I
These
watched this
animals in
initially.
serious pain and
That was a
basically makes it
potentially
so that
broken
the
neck.
only humane thing to do here
Woo!
is put these deer down. Many videos that I show of zombie deer actually end in that outcome, with someone eventually just shooting the deer. But it does make for a good cryptid sighting. CWD can explain some aspects of knot deer sightings,
It's hard to watch.
such as the strange behavior,
Hard to
messed
watch.
up proportions, and fearlessness of humans. And remember that not every sighting needs to
Poor
have
thing.
every single characteristic of knot deer. And in all honesty, that makes the legend of the knot deer a whole lot scarier. The knot deer legend spreads by people having different but universally strange experiences with these deer. Let's move on to the next condition. Rabies. Rabies symptoms are very similar to CWD symptoms, and the disease is just as fatal for deer. Rabies causes deer to lose balance, lose fear, and can also make them more aggressive. Other strange symptoms include frequent salivation. One or more legs can become paralyzed, causing the deer to walk in a strange fashion, or just completely spaz out like this poor fawn. On the whole, besides the weight loss, rabies has the same effect on the knot deer legend as CWD does. Deer behaving strangely and doing it in front of people is why these real sightings are so common. Regarding the second account of the knot deer that we read from Gris, I think that rabies is the most likely explanation for why that doe was acting so strangely. We aren't quite done with acronyms yet. EHD, or epizootic hemorrhagic disease, is a less common but equally fatal and problematic deer disease, which makes them display strange behavior, even causing their face to swell, making the eyes look bloodshot and creepy. Perhaps the most crazy condition that deer can have is fibroma, or deer warts. A strange condition that deer can actually survive with. Deer warts can absolutely vary in size from the reasonable to the absolutely horrifying.
Stomach sick.
Deer with warts like this, or even deer with tumors, can come off as having strange proportions if you were to run into them in the middle of the night, and have likely had a huge effect on the knot deer legend. So, with all these diseases, it's not incredibly difficult to imagine how encountering a deer like this could make them seem alien or mythical. There are some other non-disease-based factors, though, that are just as interesting. One theory about the knot deer that I think is very interesting is that people could be misidentifying elk as deer. A few states in Appalachia are slowly reintroducing elk, which obviously aren't scary at all, but they're very uncommon. Their proportions are much different from deer, and they can also weigh like 5 times more than deer. If you saw one of these from a distance in a place in Appalachia where you never expected to see one, or you had never seen an elk before, it could absolutely freak you out. And on top of that, elk are just as susceptible to the diseases that we talked about earlier. So the strange behaviors associated with those diseases combined with the gigantic size could absolutely create a similarly creepy phenomenon. Another thing to talk about is noises. Typically, you don't expect deer to make noises at all. Usually the only sound that deer produce is the rustling of leaves when they're running away. But deer actually can bark, and it sounds like this.
This is cool. This is cute. It's cute. I'm sorry. It's cute. Listen.
It's not the most common
You,
deer
wait,
behavior.
you're gonna tell me? All right. Let's take a step back. All right, realistically, if you're out in the woods at night alone, doing your own thing, and you hear this, I can see how that will cause concern. That said, if you're not out in the woods doing your own thing, and you know that there are deer, you're gonna tell me that this isn't cute? I mean, it sounds like a baby pig. But again, that's not the discussion. The discussion isn't how cute it is. I mean, come on.
It's not the most
Cute.
common deer behavior, but it
Not
can
when you're
be
alone at
displayed.
night in the woods,
So
but
if
it's
you were
cute.
to hear that at night, it could absolutely be terrifying.
You look at that, right? You take one look at that. Now that is gonna cause a chill, because that's like, okay, that you need to like take a second to process that.
What I've just described is just the surface level of strange behaviors from white-tailed deer. Deer are herbivores, but they've literally been seen eating meat,
It's true.
including human flesh. Yeah, you heard that right, human flesh. In a study conducted by the Forensic Anthropology Research Facility in San Marcos, Texas, human bodies were donated to science and observed being scavenged by animals, when a deer happened to stop by and literally take a bite. While this example with human meat is crazy,
All right, hold on. This just hit me. This just hit me. You die. Your body is donated to science. What do? They throw your body out in the middle of the woods and watch what eats it. I mean, if that's the case, you might as well just give me a bottle of gin during winter and just let me go. Like, I get it. I understand it, but that's your science. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Look at that. Animals eat meat. Who would have thunk it?
deer do often turn to eating other small animals in winter months where plant life is scarce, because live or dead animals can be a good source of phosphorus, salt, and calcium. If you were to see this happening though, especially with the common knowledge that deer don't eat meat, how would you react to it? That's pretty horrifying. I don't know about you guys, but if I observed any of this behavior in deer, let alone a combination of them, I'd freak out. In case I haven't made it obvious, not deer have become some of my favorite cryptids ever, because they toe this incredible line between reality and myth. While they aren't necessarily this legendary species that you might expect, you could absolutely run into a deer that, through one of the ways we talked about today, has become a not deer. And this attitude becomes a very fun way to look at cryptids and other legendary species. Not deer don't need to be real for them to exist. So long as deer have the capacity to display this strange behavior, the legend of the Appalachian not deer will carry on, and the stories will always be interesting. Thanks for tuning into the Seed Butter channel today. I really hope you enjoyed this unique video. If this is popular amongst my viewers, I'd love to do some more cryptid roundups in the future and talk about new cryptids that are popping up on social media. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to be a part of picking future videos, including iceberg charts specifically, you can join the Seed Butter Discord, which is the most effective way to communicate with me. Thanks for sticking around for this whole video, y'all, and I hope you have a great day. See you soon.
I'm thinking of doing an iceberg video myself. So, break free. No, we're not breaking free. So, you're staying. This is Seed Butter. Again, amazing channel. I thought I was subscribed. I guess not, but I'm subscribed, of course. And it's just awesome content. I mean, it's very good content. Very, very good. So I highly recommend them. But yeah, so Nintendo ruined a WiiWare ARG? Really? Anyway, Getting distracted. I'm usually distracted. So that's a not deer in a nutshell.
One of the coolest
No, we already watched it. We already
communities on the
Thank you again deeply to Seed Butter for allowing me to use this video during the live stream. Again, I recognize that I don't need the permission necessarily, but I appreciate it. Okay. Now we're going to read Seed Butter's own encounter. Actually, you know what? I need some music myself. Hold on. Desktop. Let's go all my music. All right. And then 3, 4. Wow, I totally missed clicking that. I mean, I went right around what I wanted. We can finally get rid of this. All right. So. All right. Going on. Okay. Seed Butter. All right, guys. I'm floored. This video is getting some more. Yeah, I know. This isn't scary music like what he had. Look. What do you want? I'm floored. This video is getting some more popularity recently, so I wanted to share the story of when I encountered the knot deer. Sometime in February of 2023, I went out camping at a pretty well-known spot in southern USA. I'm an Eagle Scout, and I've done some grueling camping, so I would say I'm fairly experienced, but nothing too crazy. This wasn't off the beaten path or anything, and I was only a mile or so hike from my car when this happened. I didn't prepare at all, and in that regard, really failed my quote-unquote training in lots of ways, and went for an impromptu camping trip while in college. I had all the stuff you need, but my big failure was getting out so late that by the time I parked my car, it was pitch black. And what I had planned required a few miles hike. This sucked, but wasn't a huge problem, and I just put my headlamp on and went. I had a small one-man tent and a few meals and other basic camping things, and just planned on having a little fire and making some MREs, and being back home for the next afternoon. Again, nothing crazy. I got started moving pretty slowly due to terrain/darkness. And that's basically when it happened. I can't make this part of the story long because it really did happen so fast, but I had an encounter with a deer that stuck with me ever since. Basically, now here's where it comes in. I heard some noises in the foliage to my left. Caught my attention because it just kind of felt off, you know? Further, it appeared that the shaking leaves/sticks were high up. Not the sort of movement from a raccoon or possum, which I had seen a lot of previously. It was just too high. I stared at it for an uncomfortable but short time, probably like 10-15 seconds, but I was honestly a bit spooked. I set off to leave, and as I'm turning my head back towards turning my head back rightwards to move forward, this 7-foot tall form sprints at me like complete human sprint speed and rushes right in front of me and past me to my left. I didn't even have time to react, but basically a deer on its hind legs had run across my path, coming so close that I had my arms out. I could have touched it. Obviously no harm came of it, but I didn't really put all the pieces together until like a minute after. I actually stood there for like 2 or 3 minutes before I started going again. It scared the living you-know-what out of me. Continue. For just a moment, I experienced a primal human type of fear I haven't ever experienced, like dinosaur chasing cavemen sort of thing. For that split second it happened, I really did think some huge creature was heading my way. I didn't even go into flight or fight, I just froze. That's really what sticks with me. I think that was the only time in my life I've ever actually been paralyzed with fear/confusion. Really had to think how I'd prepare for an animal encounter in the future. I'll probably talk more about this in the Discord or sometime later, and there's more details from that night, but this was basically it. I had made this video long before, on the hike down to the car, I laughingly thought about it. I've always loved white-tailed deer, and I'm outside enough that I'm super familiar with them, and I'd seen some sick ones before, but this experience was just different. I'm sure nothing was wrong with the deer, honestly. It was just a fact that it somehow maintained a sprint while on 2 hoofs. It wasn't reaching up for food on its hind legs, then spooked. It sprinted at me on its hind legs. I didn't even know that that's physically possible. Crazy time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and keep sharing your not deer stories down below. I like reading them. So that's the encounter of Seed Butter's not deer. Not gonna lie, That's far more scary than anything in the video. Yeah, it's scary to have a deer leave a pig's foot at your doorstep, but I'd rather that than have a deer on hind legs that's 7 feet tall run at me. I mean, I just would. And I'll give me a present instead. I'll take a present, you know? Deer claws. Thank you. So, now that's the general overview. So what we're going to do, we're going to look up not deer. And this is the usual, I need to turn this music down, I'm sorry. This is the usual of what I do on these live streams, where instead of watching videos, although we might do that from time to time, we'll just go online and read a bunch of articles and pieces about the cryptid that we're talking about. So we're going to do that here. And I don't know really where to start. I mean, there's so many, so let's just start where it sounds right. East Tennessean, Journal News Online. And again, I will update the description after the stream to include Seed Butter's channel as well, not just the video. Shout out, go check out the channel. Amazing content. Cryptids.fandom has been a semi-reliable source of information. I mean, I'd rather read Paranormal Catalog, but might as well read it. It's edited by anybody, so, you know, it's Wikipedia. I mean, it's not Wikipedia, but you get the idea. One more yawn. Alright. The knot deer is a creature said to inhabit the Appalachian Mountains, with most sightings being in the state of Tennessee. The animal is characterized as looking like a normal deer at first glance, but upon closer inspection it becomes apparent that something is off with its anatomy and behavior. The knot deer is described as looking like a deer from a distance, but as one looks at it longer or gets closer, something about it is off. The movements are described as being like a newborn deer, but appearing as an adult. Some accounts suggest the creature is double-jointed or has additional joints in its limbs. The limbs are described as longer than those of a deer, and the chest very barrel-like. The way it moves is said to be aggressive compared to that of a deer. The most defining feature, however, is that knot deers do not have eyes on the side of their head, but rather the front, like a predator. This distinction is usually the first thing noticed as off. A few accounts involve multiple eyes. Why is that staying? Okay. Now I'm getting creeped out. A few accounts involve multiple eyes, though most do not. Other uncommon outliers to the typical account involve describing the head as bovine. Knot deers are behavior. Knot deers are said not to be afraid of humans. Those who encounter them say they have an uneasy feeling that there is an intelligence and emotion about them that furthers the feeling that something is off. The knot deer will generally approach humans, and it's because of this that odd movements are noted. Despite encounters feeling off, the creature has only been reported to attack if provoked, such as when an encountee tries to scare them off. Some accounts of such involve being chased up a tree by the knot deer. The knot deer may walk on its hind legs for a bit, such as what we read with Seed Butter's encounter, as some animals may do in order to intimidate or in attempts to reach individuals who chase up trees. Pardon me. I'm sorry. I've had sleeping issues lately. Yeah, and the other thing too is, pardon me, the other thing too with knot deer is the fact that they also probably stand on their hind legs just so they can reach food, you know? Witnesses. The knot deer accounts are primarily focused on Reddit, but after getting attention spread in recent years to TikTok and other sites. Usually sightings are on roads, such as a case of driving alone on a motorcycle on an Appalachian road, and seeing in the road what looks like a deer but becomes very obviously not a deer, or as the encounter gets closer. Explanations. Knot deer encounters are suggested by skeptics to be encounters with deer who have birth defects causing son of a gun. Oh, pardon me, I'm sorry. With birth defects causing unusual walking patterns and head shape. The feelings reported by those who claim to have encountered knot deer are thought to be the result of isolation, sleep deprivation, I know what that's like apparently, or other factors. An alternative to the deformed deer explanation is that encounters stumbled upon deer suffering from the early stages of chronic wasting disease, or CWD, aka the zombie deer syndrome. CWD is also suspected as a possible source of modern-day Wendigo sightings, which tend to express a deer's skull face. I don't know why I struggled with that. In regards to CWD, the first sign of the illness is a difficulty in movement. Follow-up sign is a change in behavior, which includes listlessness, listless, what? Huh? What is this word? Listlessness. That word. What is it? State of being listless. Thanks. Indifference, lethargic. Tremors and nervousness. Excessive salivation and increased water intake flow. The deer loses its fear of humans and looks utterly confused after this wasting begins, and those who favor this explanation from the not deer suggest the accounts of double joints or multiple jointed legs are merely legs that have lost some internal tissue lining the lower leg to swing slightly in either direction. Hate that. Some suggest that multiple eyes are a misidentification of open lesions whose exposed fluids reflect light. That would actually help explain what we saw with the CWD deer in the video by Seed Butter. How the eyes looked off and like almost glowy. Well, that would explain why. Not deer are featured in a popular trading card game, MetaZoo Cryptid Nation. Possible not deer is featured prominently in the Adventure Time episode, No One Can Hear You, serving as the main antagonist. While not deer weren't relevant at the time, he has forward-facing eyes and walks upright. Oh, is that the one where he goes like this? And okay. And he's also considered the second scariest for the character on the show for this reason. Not deer classified SCP-6448 by the SCP Foundation. I like how they say that as though it's a real thing. SCP Wiki. We're not going to read an SCP Wiki. But that's the first time that I believe this a cryptid came up on this podcast on the SCP Foundation. So that's pretty cool. Unrestricted. It's a Keter, Connect, warning. And in case you're wondering, an SCP-6448 instance attempting to communicate with non-anomalous deer. And here you go. They decide a deer jumping at two other deer was scary enough to put in the SCP Wiki. Which, you know what? I guess if you read the article, it would make sense. Here he is, trying to communicate with these two. That's awesome. I love the internet. All right. Anyway, get rid of listlessness and back to the not deer investigation. All right. Let's see. The rise of the not deer Appalachian oddity. Oh, something else that I usually say at the beginning of these episodes that I didn't today. I apologize. Don't go around clicking random links. I only do because I guess I can use my IT degree as an excuse and I know what I'm looking for. But don't just go around clicking on random links on the internet. That's a good way to get viruses. Just PSA. The Rise of the Not Deer, posted on March 31st, 2022 by Appalachian Oddity. This will probably be the only article we read for a minute of the day. Oh, sorry. Try not to yawn. Alright. So the rise of the not deer. Let's zoom in here. Here we go. On August 21st of 2019, Madison of the Will O' the Witch blog made a post that would soon grab the internet's attention. Madison was a self-described Jewish witch with a blog about magic and witchcraft, but this post wasn't about that. It was about a piece of local lore from their time living in North Carolina. The author has made an earlier blog entry about Appalachian lore that they heard from their mother. This included an offhanded mention of things near them that looked like deer, but supposedly weren't. An anonymous user posted a question asking them to clarify what they meant by this. While the first post received little attention, Madison's clarifying story, it seems, touched upon something. Madison decided to give the answer in the style of a campfire story, phrasing part of the post as a first-person narrative to the possibly frightening reader. Madison's short tale is meant to guide you through the experience of discovering a deer by the road that looks, moves, or behaves strangely, resulting in the driver speeding away in fear. The following is quoted with permission. You're in a car at night, in a rural, heavily wooded area, and probably a bit lost. It's not wildly uncommon to see an opossum crossing the road. See blips of little animals with your headlights. You see a deer. Slow down in case it loops out in front of you. When you get a better look at it, you notice there's just something wrong about it. There's something about its eyes. You feel your stomach get heavy like a rock, the hair on your neck rise. You sense intelligence that you shouldn't. It doesn't move like a deer. Oh God, what is that thing? You hit the gas and get out of there. And in the continuing post, Madison told a group of their friends having an odd experience with a strange deer on the Blue Ridge Parkway, North Carolina. The deer reportedly seemed off to them and more intelligent than usual. He said it stood up with 2 legs and gave the viewers a feeling that something was very wrong. A group of my friends got lost on the parkway once and reemerged with a chilling story. They aren't the kind of folks to lie or over-exaggerate. Among other freaky stuff that happened, the driver claimed she saw a deer on the road, and she noticed the deer was on 2 legs. Madison said that a general understanding had come about among locals regarding an odd deer encounters. Everyone they talked to seemed to know something about these deer that somehow weren't like normal deer. The label Madison chose to coin for these bizarre animals was the not deer. With admitted exaggeration, they said that anyone who spends enough time in Appalachia would know about the not deer. What wasn't an exaggeration, though, was that a lot of folks online were about to know about it. In 2020, the post found its way onto the subreddit r/Appalachia, where a user saying that they couldn't find anything else about it online inquired to see if anyone had heard about this obscurity before. The comments at the time were filled with folks from Appalachia who rightfully had no idea what they were talking about. Others tried to debunk the tale with information on chronic wasting disease, which can cause deer to act strangely. Then something curious happened. People began sharing their own strange deer stories in the comments, perhaps recontextualizing experiences that they'd had in the woods or on the road when they saw a deer that didn't seem right. People had stories, but they never thought they'd call them a not deer or take them all that seriously. A genre of report was forming with the birth of this new label. Madison chimed in under the post on Reddit to clarify that their comment about anyone in Appalachia knowing was hyperbole, stating that it was intended as a campfire story of sorts, though many people they knew had indeed seen odd deer in North Carolina before Madison moved from the area. They said they of course couldn't attest to see the validity of the other stories being shared in the comments. The popularity only grew from there. Micah informs me of the story / Teresa's Tale. Teresa's Tale. That's a good little headline there. On June 5th, 2021, Micah, a correspondent of the Appalachian Mystery Society, AMS, shared with me a story of the not deer by linking to the Reddit post, which then led me to the original blog post. Looking around the internet, I saw that it had become a bit of a trend on Tumblr and Reddit, with plenty of fan art and supposed sightings. None of the not deer posts predated Madison's 2019 blog entry, though, and it seemed to be the source. I saw the blog was filled with content on witchcraft and magic. In one post, the author said deer were their favorite animal. Okay, I immediately thought this could be some sort of attempt as a thought form creation or something. I wondered if the popularity of this trend was indeed a purposeful intention of sorts. I soon learned I was wrong, at least in one regard, it being on purpose. Of course, story being billed as the Appalachian not deer naturally interested me as an amateur folklore researcher from West Virginia. Almost heaven. So I reached out to the author to interview them. In the meantime, the correspondents in my AMS research group were abuzz with their own personal encounters of strange deer. I was very surprised to see this. One correspondent told of a deer with 3 legs that he and his friends would see in his backyard. Another correspondent, Teresa of the blog Teresa's Haunted History of the Tri-State, that's a nice title, a little long, but nice title, told of an experience that supposedly happened to her mother about 15 years ago. She permitted me to share the details here. My mom has a not deer story. This logical, educated, no-nonsense woman cannot be convinced that what she experienced didn't have some sort of supernatural element to it. She was driving alongside Route 817 between St. Albans and Winfield one night and was in the vicinity of the AAP plant. She saw something massive in the middle of the road up ahead, so she hit the brakes and stopped right before hitting the biggest buck she'd ever seen. She claims that its head towered over the top of her car and was at least a 15-pointer. It bent its head down and stared at her through the window until she was officially creeped out, enough to start driving around it. Wait, so did she hit the buck? Hold on. Oh, stopped right before. Okay, so she almost hit the buck. Officially creeped out enough to start driving around it. She said as she drove off, it stayed put, never moving from the middle of the road. Staring at her car, she drove off. Probably like, what the heck why did you almost hit me, buddy? She dubbed him the Deer of Death and still warns us not to travel that way after dark. It's been a great source of music for my sister and I, but my mom swears to this day that was no normal deer. Okay, I just want to check to make sure I'm not missing. Okay. Alright. Oh, wait. Even I had a story that could be recontextualized as a not deer story if I really wanted to. In October 2020, while meditating in a graveyard, a deer emerged from the forest to stare at me. The deer weaved gracefully between the tombstones and didn't avoid me at all, as if it wasn't afraid of people. I found it to be a pretty cool experience, but I didn't consider it paranormal. Could I call this a not deer encounter? There seems to be a lot of stories that could fit this new mold. Well, I mean, I guess. I just think that's a really cool experience. That's pretty cool. Imagine that you're just existing in a graveyard at night. Sounds very peaceful to me. And then a deer just kind of walks through it, looks at you, keeps going. I don't know, it sounds nice. Sounds like a sign. I like that. The not deer interview with Madison. The interview with Madison over voice call occurred on July 19, 2021. I asked Madison if the not deer was some form of magical working or thought form. Not intentionally, they responded. They stressed repeatedly that they didn't expect the post to take off the way it did or become known. I got the impression that this was a very logical piece of North Carolina folklore or an odd story between friends that had made its way over the internet. Madison's group of friends had an experience which caused them to ask around, which caused them to learn, as I did, that a lot of people had bizarre deer encounters. If there was anything paranormal or unexplained behind them was another issue altogether. It should be said that animals seen momentarily in the dark can take on strange shapes, and human perception is an incredibly flawed tool. That's true. In their blog post, Madison hinted that the other weird stuff had happened on the Blue Ridge Parkway. In my interview, they told me that one of these odd experiences was a lapse in memory, which could be called missing time. UFO researcher Bud Hopkins is known to have coined the term missing time. He investigated and documented close encounters of the fourth kind, aka alien abduction cases. Perhaps not what you think of within a not deer story, but apparently something that was part of the original tale, according to Madison and a friend. Another thing that reported anomalous or paranormal abduction cases are known for is screen memories, which are supposed images placed in the mind of witnesses to conceal what truly happened to them. That is, yeah, that's very common in alien abduction stories, actually. Very common. An iconic example of this are owls, as pointed out by author Mike Selliand in his book, The Messengers, Owls, Synchronicity, and the UFO Abductee in 2016. Perhaps there was something more to that upright standing deer that the friend saw on Blue Ridge Parkway. Perhaps a not deer could be called a screen memory. To paraphrase the David Lynch series Twin Peaks, maybe the deer aren't quite what they seem. The idea of a person or an animal that doesn't seem quite right falls into ideas of the uncanny. In UFO folklore, or if UFO lore, the legend of the Men in Black is a prime display of this. This is apparent especially in the hands of author John Keel, who used the MIB as a catch-all generic term for an uncanny imposter. Technically, if these beings aren't human, they are in fact not Men in Black. I like that. UFO literature and science fiction is rife with ideas of something inhuman, creepily mimicking human behavior. Often the MIB in these stories have something only slightly off that makes people consider them to be downright alien. The same applies here to animals and with folkloric ideas of animal mimics. A not deer is therefore simply a generic label for the uncanny deer. Madison applied this label to their friends' stories and the readers that apply it to their own. Public response to the not deer. After the interview, the popularity continued to grow on its own. I was seeing references to the not deer in the oddest of places, including even the YouTube content about Sasquatch. Soon the trend made its way over onto the bright lights of the short video platform TikTok to be enjoyed by the teenagers of Generation Z. There are a lot of people, including anomalous researchers, who are first exploring the concept. And now we're doing this live. To some, it seems it became a bit of nuisance. Wow, man, I'm struggling tonight. I'm sorry. Strong feelings were displayed both positively and negatively from fans and critics of the not deer phenomenon. Folks took to Reddit declaring the not deer to be their favorite cryptid and flooding forums with talented fan art and praise, while others cringed at the supposed silliness of these sightings, considering them too outlandish or too easily explainable as an ordinary deer. The not deer became the subject of many tongue-in-cheek comments and jokes as well. Because of its popularity on platforms like TikTok, the not deer has come to be seen by some as just a teenage internet trend or meme, despite its origins in North Carolina on the Blue Ridge Parkway. A lot of folklore spreads through the teenage rumor mill, or through gossip, of course. The famous urban legend of the hook-handed killer Hookman comes to mind, as well as many Sasquatch and other creature stories. Adam Benedict of the Pine Barren Institute, author of Monsters in Print 2019 and other books, didn't mince words with his opinion on not deer. In 2022, took Twitter to write this. I said it many times before, and I'll continue to say it until the day I die. The not deer is the stupidest effing thing ever. A bold statement for sure, but is a not deer really the stupidest effing thing ever, as he so elegantly put it? I myself can think of many things much more stupid than that. Those bits of dust and photographs that people call spirit orbs, for example. Yeah. The jackalope is a legendary animal, a rabbit with the antlers of a deer. Like the not deer with the chronic wasting disease explanation, the idea of bizarre growths in rabbits that look like horns is reported to be a possible explanation for jackalope folklore. Makes sense. Despite the creature's inherent silliness, people embrace a jackalope as a folksy carnival gaff. They have no problem with hanging a taxidermy rabbit with deer horns affixed to it on their wall. Okay, I have a problem with that. Representing the creature in an artwork, despite the origin very likely being misidentification. So what makes one or more objectionable than the other? I'll remind that many of the most famous 14 cases began with a group of teenage witnesses at lovers' lanes who only a handful of reporters and investigators took seriously. Perhaps this could be the modern form of that. Folklore has existed long before the internet, and it will continue to exist through the online age we find ourselves in now. Parsing through it all, separating the wheat and the chaff will always be a difficult task. Black dogs and white stags. For those who have no interest in folklore or the paranormal at least, the irritation with the tale makes sense. Not deer stories thus far are clearly not trying to present such sightings as some type of undiscovered deer, so those of amateur zoological pursuits will rightfully have little interest in them. These tales are presented more as paranormal encounters in nature. Modern folktale fits the bill much nicer, it seems. What is the real difference between a black dog or... what is the real difference between, say, a black dog of Celtic folklore, something that is more akin to a ghost than a literal animal, and a strange deer that isn't quite right? As a weirdo, I tend to be fascinated by a lot of legends, both new and old, but time does play a factor for the general public. Funny ideas from long ago, oh my word, I'm struggling, are sometimes afforded more legitimacy than recent ones despite similarity. A question we could all ask ourselves is, are we perhaps too accepting of old ideas or too submissive to certain modern ones? So I want to take a second here. I've been reading a lot. This is what we do on the Cryptid Podcast and Whistlers. I want to take a second here and just kind of point out, it's really interesting because the idea being set forth here by Appalachian Oddity is less than not deer is a thing 100%, and more so, look, even if it's not, it's become modern folklore, like it or not, since 2019. And I think that's pretty amazing. I mean, that's pretty cool. It really is. Because you think about it, when was the last time we had a new folk tale in America? Like, I mean, you can make arguments that there are some pretty well-known ones that I can't think of, but it's been at least, I would say, 10, 15, 20 years. You know, I can't think of the last one, but that's pretty cool. I like it. That's a much more reasonable take than, you know, stupidest everything ever. So that's pretty cool. Within Celtic mythology, a white or albino deer, specifically a white stag, has meanings as a spiritual messenger of the other world. In Christianity, St. Eustace and St. Hubert both have legends associated with them about receiving a message of Christ from a white stag or seeing a visionary image between a stag's antlers. So there is a bit of precedent there in lore that Appalachian people might be familiar with, though more specifically with white deer. That's interesting. I had a conversation with a fellow researcher of the bizarre who was very dismissive of not deer encounters. He said people are often too glued to the pale glow of their cell phones to know about the natural behavior of deer in order to distinguish it from odd behavior. A fair point. Sightings of odd things in the woods or along the side of the road are often taken more seriously when seen by rugged outdoorsmen. My contention would be, of course, that there are folks who have seen strange deer throughout history, and even recently, that are indeed the outdoorsy type. Plenty of lights in the sky can be explained and turn out to be nothing, but it doesn't mean to throw out the entire genre of aerial anomalies. The researcher in question proudly files all not deer sightings in the big file labeled trash. Oof. Oof. I wouldn't be so quick to do so. Sure, when a folklore is in the spotlight, there are bound to be plenty of low-quality reports coming in, but at the same time is true about UFO waves and the like. I think it's better to take these things on a case-by-case basis. That's very similar to what we did with the Miami alien giant earlier in 2024. I forget the exact date and everything, but there was a supposed giant in Miami that just wasn't, to be blunt. There could be diamonds in the rough if Teresa's story is anything to go by. Conclusions. Alright. That actually might... Yeah, full audio interview. Okay. As someone who studies folklore, I think this tale actually has some potential. Deer are very common animals in America and in Appalachia. Any place with deer will naturally have deer folklore, and perhaps this will be a genre or label for these reports. Plenty will be misidentifications, no doubt, like with any other Fortean report. I don't really know what that word means. But tales of strange or mystifying experiences with nature aren't new, of course. People applying a spiritual meaning or interpretation onto animals has also been around forever, and will continue in its many forms. Madison has indicated online that the popularity of the not deer as a concept has overwhelmed them. The idea is fully beyond their control at this point. They have no clue. An offhand comment like this would ever make it outside of their blog, let alone grow into an internet phenomenon with devoted fans and harsh critics. And when we're done this, I'm going to take a quick look at the original blog if I can, and then I'm going to call it for the day. Perhaps this is how pilot Kenneth Arnold felt when reports of flying saucers poured in and filled the newspapers after he offhandedly coined the term in 1947. Perhaps that is too how the public reacted to reported stories of 8 men in the area after being introduced to California's Bigfoot for the first time in 1958. If a genre of report can be carved out, the sightings will come. If folks start looking for something, many will think they found it. If a name can be given to a prior experience, people will gladly apply the name. Though make no mistake, I'm well aware that a lot of oddities are just a flash in the pan and are quickly forgotten and never turn into anything more. This could certainly be one of those. It's not in my control or anyone else for that matter. Madison had no idea where they would have gotten themselves into when they published that blog. Like so many others online who by chance resonate with the zeitgeist, it was a quick thing with no big thought put into it that wasn't supposed to mean much. Another example to show that sometimes ideas are more powerful than us. True. It not to survive past the internet trend or will fall by the wayside. It might be too soon to know. The tale is still currently evolving, and better question might be if it does stick around, what it will turn into. Alright. I'm not going to listen to the hour-long thing, but it looks like we do have access to the original post. Oh! This is nothing. Might as well read this. So, according to Appalachian Oddity, this is the origin of the term the not deer. Let's give it a read. What do you mean by that's not a deer in the mountains near you? Anyone who spends decent amount of time in Appalachia knows the not deer. If you've gone on the Blue Ridge Parkway at night, you've probably seen him. Now, keep in mind, if you don't live in the area with a lot of deer, deer are freaky bastards on their own. They're really big, extremely global, extremely agile, move surprisingly quiet, and are extremely durable. It's not unheard of for someone to hit a deer and total their car. Once I heard a story of a man who hit a deer on accident and decided to take it home and at least get some good meat out of a bad situation. On the drive home, the deer woke up and absolutely shredded the inside of the man's trunk. They're very cute, but you definitely don't want to mess with one. Just keep that relationship in the back of your mind. Anyway, the not deer is more or less what I call a folk cryptid. Everyone has their story about it. They're all somewhat similar. You're in a car at night in a rural, heavily wooded area and probably a bit lost. It's not wildly uncommon to see an opossum crossing the road, see blips of little animals with your headlights, you see a deer, so you/your friends go, "Oh, deer," and slow down just in case it leaps out in front of you. That's funny. Then you see it more clearly. There's just something wrong about it. Something in its eye, about its eyes. You feel your stomach get heavy like a rock. The hair on your neck rise. So you sense intelligence that you shouldn't. It doesn't move like a deer. It moves like a, oh god, what is that thing? Whatever that thing is, it's not a deer, and we need to leave. You hit the gas and get out of there. A group of my friends got lost on the parkway once and reemerged with a chilling story. They aren't the kind of folk who lie or over-exaggerate. Among other freaky stuff that happened, the driver claimed she saw a deer on the road, that she knows the deer was on 2 legs. Apparently, that's the creation of the not deer folklore. which, I mean, how many, there's no number on how many notes that there is. It's probably got thousands and thousands of notes. But yeah, so that's where the not deer really comes from, as far as the idea of it. Not to say that it's fictional, but that's the idea. So, but anyway, that is the not deer. A little bit of history. We watched the video. Thank you again deeply to Seed Butter. I will again put your channel link in the description of this video. And to everybody watching this as a VOD, or live, go check out Seed Butter. Amazing content. All that said, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. It shows your support, gets you motivate more videos just like this one. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed it. And consider, if you have the spare change, to join the membership, to join the channel memberships. We do have 3 tiers of memberships currently at $2, $7, $15. And yeah, you get certain perks at certain tiers. You can check all that out in the description of this video. And also next to the subscribe button on the join tab. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Remember that someone loves you, even if they don't know it yet. I love you guys. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the support recently. It's meant more than I can express. Jesus loves you. Have a great day, guys. I'll talk to you later. See you next week, Tuesday around 7 p.m. for the next episode of the Whistlers Cryptid Podcast. Take it easy, guys. And goodbye.